Baseball fans, BetMGM is giving you the chance to win a prize every day during the baseball season. Step into the batter's box for BetMGM's Swing for the Fences free-to-play game. Pick an area of the strike zone and take your best swing. If you get a single, double, triple, or home run, you'll receive a prize. Smash a home run to collect a bonus bet on us. Just log into your BetMGM sports account to get started. Then visit your promotion section to access the Swing for the Fences free-to-play game. You'll score a prize if you hit a single, double, triple, or home run. There's nothing more exciting than going yard, so swing for the fences with the king of sportsbooks. BetMGM and GameSense remind you to play responsibly. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only, Washington, D.C. only. Existing customer offer subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards vary depending on market and expire 24 hours from issuance. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
What if AI could help your business deliver mission-critical outcomes with speed? With IBM Consulting, your business can design, build, and scale trusted AI using Watson X, and modernize the way you work to accelerate real impact. Let's create AI that transforms your business. Learn more at ibm.com/consulting. IBM. Let's create.
You're listening to 100 Words or Less with Ray Harkins.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of this podcast in which we talk to people who are involved in independent music, whether it's hardcore, punk, metal, indie rock, emo, whatever it is, whatever subgenre you want to put on it, scrams, screamo. I could go on. There's so many ridiculous subdivisions. Like I thought when I was younger and just getting into, this style of music, I thought that time was confusing. Now, as a 14 or 15-year-old, there are so many landmines you got to navigate where it's like, that's not this is that. And then also on the flip side, there are people who are just like, I don't care. It's guitar music, it's electronic music, like whatever it is, as long as it's good to my ears. Anyways, I am thrilled to have Kevin Baker from The Hope Conspiracy, Bars, Piecemeal, All Pigs Must Die. He is... Man, talk about a vicious vocalist. Since the moment that I first heard him back in the Piecemeal days, shout out to the Piecemeal Die My Will split, which of course we talk about in this particular episode. I've always been impressed with Kevin's vocals, and I was just absolutely obsessed with The Hope Conspiracy when they first came out. Because I just remember the buzz of being like, oh my gosh, like dudes from Harvest started a new band and, they are sending around a demo to audition singers and it was a whole thing. And then I remember when the demo came out, it's such a pissed off demo. And they haven't relented. They just released, first time in 10 years, if not longer. I'm totally probably butchering how many years since the last new music. No, I want to say 14 years maybe. I think 2010 is when they released new music. Regardless, The Hope Conspiracy have a new record. It's called Tools of Oppression / Rule by Deception. Out now through our friends at Deathwish. And the record rips. It absolutely rips. And I know that sounds like a real generic, it just rips. It shreds, but it genuinely is a punch in the gut. And a record for end times like that. A lot of people like to throw around that description, but this definitely feels very vital for the moment. And so the fact that Kevin was interested in coming on the podcast, he's getting out a little bit more. He's doing some, more press, I guess. He's done interviews in the past. I'm not going to, paint him with a broad brush like he's some recluse or whatever. But he just hasn't been known to kind of get out there and share a bunch about himself. So I was really, really happy that he is doing it and that he decided to do it with this show. So super great stuff. Let's talk about the ways you can support the show. You can always email us, 100wordspodcast@gmail.com. Love to get feedback, whether it's guest ideas, whether it's just, sharing stuff. Love to hear that. Or even if it's like one of my favorite things is when people recommend like record stores or, good vegan eats in their town, like all that sort of stuff is great because, I just like to kind of collect that in a list. And then when I roll through that particular town, boom, I know what's up. So you can also leave a rating and review on the Apple Podcast page, and you can leave a rating on the Spotify page if you listen to it there. We also publish these episodes on YouTube, so you can follow along there. I have a link in the show notes for most of this stuff, including the YouTube page. So because people love listening to podcasts on YouTube, I personally don't, but that's just what I was going to say, to each their own. So that is what you can do. Weekly recommendations. Let's talk about that because I've been doing this every week for all of this year. I will be recommending new music I've tripped across or just stuff that I've tripped across that doesn't even have to necessarily be new. But I am very excited to recommend a friend's band from Japan called Indication. The new LP that just came out like a week or two ago, it's called Atraxia of the Phoenix. Came out on Days here in the United States, and it is Japanese edge metal. I am so thrilled. Like I remember I was actually my friend Koba, who has brought Taken over to Japan a couple of times, actually more than a couple of times, but great human being. I remember he showed me not this stuff, but the demo when they first came out. It was like 2 or 3 songs, I want to say. I was like, oh my gosh, I love what you're doing. So it's great. They also have guest spots from Heaven Shall Burn, Mind Force, and other friends of the band. And it's just a great record. If you like metallic hardcore, you will drink this up. Again, the band is called Indication. The record is called Atraxia of the Phoenix. Please listen to it. It is so damn good. So let's talk to Kevin Baker. Hope Conspiracy. Just listen to the new record. It's really, really good. Pissed, enjoyable. Everything that you want from a Hope Conspiracy record in 2024 is exactly what you get, and I mean that in the best way possible. So let's talk to Kevin Baker now. Me being a hardcore kid of a certain age, I was absolutely mesmerized by the HopeCon demo to the point where I live in Southern California. And the first time you guys came out here, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was with Every Time I Die, right? Or no?
Oh, first time? No, it was with Converge.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
But I remember, I think it was at the Showcase Theater in Corona, California.
Okay.
And so anyways, I'm not asking you to remember that specific show, but the idea.
I do have a recollection of it, believe it or not. I do remember, being there on that tour with Converge.
Right. And I know, it's obviously great because you had these relationships with Converge and you were able to play in front of a lot of people. But I just remember specifically where it was like, I am not a moshing dude as far as windmills or whatever, obviously kids do from that side of things, but sing-alongs and stage jazz, whatever. Anyways, I just was captured by the ferocity. And I know that the word's been used and probably overused to describe your bands, but that idea of the fusion of, metalcore stuff with the intense nature of hardcore and just kind of bringing both those worlds together. So I realize that it might be hard to put yourself in that sort of, late 90s, early 2000s time frame again. But it seems like that was like hard boiled into the band as far as just being like, obviously we're, pissed and want to be heavy and loud and stuff, but we're kind of trying to make sure both of these worlds intermingle as far as, hardcore, metalcore, whatever you want to call it, to be able to, appease both sides of what we're into. Is that a rough approximation of, kind of the DNA of the band?
Well, in those days when the band first got together and, I really think, we had no, at least it was just like two worlds coming together because I was from the East Coast, I was from Boston, and they were from the Midwest. And, there was a direction musically, that the band was like kind of developing. But even when we put out the demo and then the first full length, like I still think it was a work in progress. We had we were never like, we're going to be this or we're going to be that. It was what it was. Like, it was just all the parts, came together, the players, and, that was the result. It was, the demo and, the first full length.
Right. And I know, like, it always is silly to try to describe like that idea of like, oh yes, we had this, battle plan of what we were going to sound like, because usually, to your point, it's just a mixture of everybody's influences kind of being like spilling out onto one another and being like, oh wow, we kind of sound, a little different than what I thought we were going to sound like, but I like it and let's go for it.
Well, there are bands that have a legit game plan out of the gate, like what they're going to be, what they're going to sound like, how they're going to be, present themselves, and, with us, it just kind of was like this real, I don't know, organic thing where it was like, trying to figure out even just the name of the band was like, many, many conversations. So, there was legit no game plan other than we were going to make it, like the first priority in our lives. That's it. We were going to be a recording and touring machine, so whatever jobs we had, like if there was a tour that was being offered, then you're quitting the job. That's it. Right. Or you're out of the band. And that was legit the plan we had, because that's what they came out, from Minnesota and Chicago, Niraj is from Chicago. When they came out here, that was the talk that, when I had with all of them, was like, you're either in or you're out. And I was like, well, I'm in, because, I hated the fucking job I was working at the time. So, it was fine by me. I was like, yeah, let's get out there. I want to see the country and hopefully go over to Europe, which of course later we did. And, a bunch of other awesome places. But yeah, as far as the sound goes, to me, I know Dan and, the original guitar player, along with Niraj, they probably had way more of an idea than, I guess I did. I just jumped on board and I was like, okay, I'm going to write words to these songs that they sent me and just do what I do. And, it came together, pretty well.
Yep. I love, you hit on something that I am kind of obsessed with when you're, forming bands, is the idea of those failed band names, because that is like, you come up like, I'm sure if you thought about the band names that you didn't use, where it was like, I can't even imagine the Hope Conspiracy being labeled like, whatever, Tire Iron or something. I don't know which, but like
that's a cool name. Maybe we should have. Can I turn back to the clock and take Tire Iron?
Yeah. But it just like that idea of those failed band names. Was there anything that you remember that was like, oh, this was a close second or third that we almost named ourselves?
Oh God, no. No way.
That's totally fine.
I bet Jonas has an unbelievable memory. And, he is my memory. Like when it comes to like, things that happened, people that were there, the where, when, how, like I can pretty much rely on him to answer those questions pretty accurately. And I bet if I asked him, I was like, hey, do you remember any of the names that we didn't use? Like, I bet he'd probably remember a few, especially we got the whole, we got the original, lineup together, like just hanging out. Like I guarantee the stories would, come out pretty quickly.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think why I'm obsessed with that is usually the ideas that come about from either, friends of the band, where it's like, cause you start to like just commiserate on the idea. And then usually the funniest ones just stick in your head where it's like, oh dude, I asked my aunt for a band name and she came up with this ridiculous thing that of course we never call the band that, but it's like, I'm never not going to remember that,
Yeah.
So putting the focus more on you, because obviously we'll spiral into all your, musical projects and stuff that you've been involved in. But were you actually born and raised in the Boston area, or where did you come up?
Yeah, I'm from here. Yeah,
Okay.
I've lived here my whole life.
Got it. And what's because clearly you've traveled, you experienced many sides of the world. What kind of keeps you, I guess, in that general orbit of the area?
I just like it. Yeah, I've always loved it here. I mean, there's just like anything else, you can pick out all the things that suck about it. But like in terms of, feeling like I belong somewhere, it's here. I just feel at home here and love being here. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love going to the West Coast. I love, especially love going to the desert, going out to Joshua Tree, that whole area. It's like, I have a real connection to that. I love going to Europe, love going to Italy, that kind of, stuff. I mean, trust me, when I go over to Italy, I'm like, I could actually, that's a place I could pick up and just go to and never come back.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
something just like live peacefully.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I find it interesting from a, touring band's perspective is like you get to visit all these places, and usually, especially when you first start out touring, you're not playing the big cities, you're playing, suburbs and, suburbs of suburbs, and you're not actually like seeing much of the area. And so it is interesting when you get kind of pulled back to your home base where you're just like, yeah, I've kind of seen all this stuff and like, it's cool. And like you said, there's interesting places that are fun to visit, but actually living in a place like, that's why you get pulled back to where you feel like you said most at home.
Yeah. Or wherever you have a connection to, especially as you get older. I don't know, at least for me, I feel way more of a connection to this place than I did even 20 years ago. So,
yeah.
Again, I've been here my whole life. So,
if it ain't broke, don't fix it,
For now, like I said,
exactly.
I could easily go someplace nicer, over, in time, maybe when I retire.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so what was your family structure like growing up? Like, mom and dad in the house, brothers and sisters, or was it, did it look different than that?
Yeah, no, it was just me, and I had an older sister. Mom and dad, and pretty basic, I mean, it wasn't like, wasn't like a house that there was no musicians in the house, it was, pretty much my access to, or my, my first memories of like loving music was, the 8-track player we had parked inside the living room, and my sister's tape collection, so a lot of Jay Giles band, Cheap Trick, and Styx, and obviously Kiss, as a little kid. really liked Kiss as a little kid.
I love, absolutely. I mean, it's larger than life. So it's like, what, dudes in costumes playing loud music, like, come on, get out of here.
Yeah.
I love that vision of the, like the 8-track, because that was, such an interesting and completely useless format, which is obviously what, gave way to cassettes dominating in the 80s. But like just that, tangibility of something that's like big and it's a cartridge and you put it in there, and just like as a kid, I can imagine that just like igniting your
especially as a little kid, because with records, it was like the needle, like trying to put it on there without scratching, and but with the 8-track, it was just like you just shoved it in this slot and it immediately started playing. And it was weird because it had 4 channels or whatever you'd want to call it on an 8-track. So I guess some songs would actually fade out like halfway through, and then it would click to go back the other way and then fade back up where it left off. At least that's what I remember.
Yeah. No, I definitely.
That's really weird.
It's insane. The thought process of the fact that like you had such limited control over your music, where it's like now you can obviously curate your experience by the second. And this is like, well, I can, but there's also some pretty severe limitations.
Right. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Big time.
So as a kid, as you were, going to school, like elementary school, junior high and high school and stuff like that, were you a sports kid? Were you like, super into reading? Like what sort of, identity were you kind of putting on yourself as you started to, build one on your own?
Hockey, played hockey. Yeah. And, that was definitely the big sport throughout my youth, was that. And I remember like freshman year, like trying out, played on the football team. I was like, fuck this sucks. I hated it. And, just the whole culture around it was just like, not for me, not into this. And, and so, from there really is when, the real love of like underground music kind of like started percolating in and around freshman year, I would say. It might even have been earlier, to be honest with you. It might have been, first time somebody brought home like a Circle Jerks tape or a Dead Kennedys tape. It was definitely, might have been even been middle school, where everyone was like, dubbing each other's whatever they bought at the skate shop, that was under the glass counter, So
yeah,
a lot of like early 80s stuff from bands that, probably weren't even together anymore. And then, from there it was, discovering the things that were current. And that's when, really, I really fell in love with like the music, was going to actually see the bands play, go like sneaking into Boston, getting on the train, going to the show, and, seeing it with my own eyes.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah. I love when you are a kid and, figuring out all of these different likes and dislikes, and especially when it comes to music, because you've got no context for this stuff. Like the first time you hear Dead Kennedys, like that's you're like, what is this dude singing like? Holiday in Cambodia? Like, I don't understand any of this, but it sounds cool.
Yeah. And you also knew it was like, coming from someone who was discovering music through like their sister's tape collection, which again, like, these dorky bands like Styx and, whatever, it may be, and then you get something like that and you're like, well, this is definitely different. Like this, right. This kind of has an edge to it, or like sounds like potentially dangerous. So
yeah,
that definitely attracted me to, that style of music.
Listen, friend, I'm talking to you. I'm pointing right at you because you need new merch and you need to go to rockabilia.com. And on top of that, you need to use this promo code 100 words or less. The number 100 words or less gets you 10% off your entire order from Rockabilia. What makes them special? Well, first of all, they sell officially licensed merch. Second of all, I don't care what band you're into, whether you're being like, you know what, I want a really cool Jimi Hendrix shirt, or maybe something from the Grateful Dead, or something else that is, more classic rock oriented. I actually thought about this the other day, where it's like, bands like Blink, Rage Against the Machine, all that stuff that, us 90s kids were like raised with. That's classic rock now. Like to my son, who's 13 years old, that's classic rock. Anyways, I digress. Rockabilia has everything you need for yourself, for your friends, for your family. Independently owned and operated, ships from the Midwest here in the United States of America. And they're just a great company. All officially licensed stuff. You've heard me say that like 3 times now. That's because it's important. No bootleg stuff. That's not the world that they exist in. So bands get paid. Everybody wins in this scenario, including you. If you use the promo code 100 words or less at rockabilia.com, just browse it up. Have fun. They also have great sales on during the summer. So just refresh that entire wardrobe, get more band merch, because you'll end up thanking me later. So rockabilia.com, 100 words or less is the promo code. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. We're sitting here. It's like June and you're like, where has the time gone? And everybody's like, oh my gosh, I have no idea. I got to like accomplish all these other things. Take a moment. Focus on the things that obviously for one matter to you, but for two, look back, be like, what have I done well? What have I done not so well? And maybe I can, ask some friends and family for some help, but where I have always gone to in regards to figuring out what I can do better, therapy. Therapy is an incredible tool at your arsenal that you can dip into. I've done it for my marriage. I've done it for myself personally. And I'm a huge advocate for what therapy can do for you because it is a third party that's able to look at what you can do to improve your life and be a person to help you along in your journey. And so I think if you were thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and entirely suited to your schedule. All you do is fill out a brief questionnaire, you get matched with a licensed therapist, and then boom, you're done. It's great. And then if you're not vibing with the therapist, you can switch it at no additional cost. So take a moment, reflect on the things you've done, reflect on the things you want to do, and visit betterhelp.com/Ray today to get 10% off of your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Ray. Going back to the hockey portion, just based on, you are a sizable human being, like you're a tall drink of water. Were you playing, defense? Were you on the offense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I imagine you were kind of a bruiser, so to speak.
I mean, yeah, as you got old, as the ages, early on, you're not allowed to like smash into each other very much, of course, you're not heavy enough to do so. But, once you start getting into like later middle school and then like early high school, yeah, you're, banging into the corners, man, like into the boards, like going to get that puck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I really like the, you participating in hockey and then, being a part of, a team and like building all those, things that are good for most kids to encounter and go through. But then once you were exposed to, a different culture, because arguably most people would look at like football and hockey and understand that there's a huge difference. But at the same time, it's like, oh yeah, it's like people kind of hitting each other, chasing a thing. And you saw football and you're like, no, hard pass on this. I still like hockey, but not football.
Yeah, because there was too much stop. I mean, hockey is just like this fluid thing that can just keep going, and before a whistle blows. Whereas, football was like, every play was probably anywhere between, 3 to 5 to 7 seconds. You know what I mean? Like it was just like, and then you're resetting, figuring out the next play. Like I wasn't interested in it. I like watching it on TV now, like obviously, but playing it at that time when I, probably had unbelievable, like, attention deficit disorder. It's just like, I have to
totally
like especially when they hand you the book, the playbook. And I'm like, oh, wait, I have to learn this. Like, nah, see you later.
Right. Yeah. You're like this. Can we just make this faster? Because this is really, really slow. Yeah. So did you care about school as far as like the academics were concerned? Was there anything that was interesting you on that side of the house?
I was a terrible student. The things I liked, got really good grades at, and the things I had no interest in, like just, C-, like it was just, didn't
possible.
My attention just wasn't there at those ages. I don't know. I completely blame myself, for not diving in, and being a good student in high school or whatever. But, when the books were good, that's when I was engaged. Like when it was, when we're reading Lord of the Flies or like, 1984, Brave New World, like when those were the things that were the, part of the lesson or the curriculum for that semester or that quarter, whatever it may be, I was all in. I loved it. Right. But, math, forget about it. I never ever, was good at math. Yeah. Right. I mean, the history I liked, I liked history a lot.
Well, that's, I do love that idea too, of especially when you're in high school and it's like, hey, this thing that like I'm really interested in, can we just do this the whole time? Yeah. Like, because when I go to these other classrooms, it sucks. What's up with that? Yeah,
and also just like it always depended on the teacher. that was always another thing. If I had no connection to the teacher or just plain didn't like them or they didn't like me, it was over. Like I was getting a bad grade because I wasn't going to do it. I wasn't going to do what was being told to do.
Yep. Totally get that. And so I imagine like what you were talking about, you starting to get influenced by what your sister was bringing home. And then obviously, once you started in high school and stuff like that, how were your parents reacting to, you, and then obviously maybe your sister as well, bringing home this music that was, ostensibly pretty weird to them? I mean, obviously they were permissive enough to let you go to shows and stuff like that, but were they like, I don't know, Kevin, like, this is pretty weird what you're bringing home. What is this?
Yeah. I mean, because, my dad was like a super conservative guy. It was like in the Marines, the whole nine. Awesome guy, loved my dad. And, they just couldn't care less about it. They were just like, what is that? Like, how do you even know what the hell they're saying? Like, all the typical, shit old parents say about when they hear hardcore, punk, metal, whatever. They're just like, how do you dance to that?
Right.
Something along those lines.
Yep.
But, whatever. They weren't like ripping my Misfits posters off the wall or like, my room was covered, in like all the stuff that I loved. And there was no like telling me I couldn't do it. So, I really appreciate that aspect of their parenting because, I remember, there was some kids that, they couldn't hang anything on their walls or they had to hide everything from their parents, and.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not saying I didn't hide things from my parents, like there's definitely a lot of sneaking around, but that was just kind of how it was.
Yeah, for sure. And so as you started to get, even deeper into, like you said, taking the train in from Boston and going to, shows that were obviously more independent minded, was it pretty quick that you decided that you wanted to try to put a band together, or was that something that you needed to, kind of ramp yourself up to?
Oh yeah. I didn't even think about it. Like, I mean, the first show I went to, was probably, summer. It was summer of, 1989. And, so I didn't think about putting anything together, like realistically putting something together until like, it was probably 93 or something like that. So although all those years up until that was just like, I didn't think about doing it at all. I just loved going to the shows. I was like a fan of the music, fan of the bands, that sort of thing.
Right. And because I know you obviously played in Piecemeal, and I know, I mean, for me personally, that Piecemeal Die My Will split was pretty awesome on my end of the spectrum, as far as it making its way out to the West Coast and being like, dude, who are these bands? Like, these are weird ass bands, but they're heavy and they're cool and they're dirty. But was Piecemeal like your actual first band, or did you have something before that?
No, that band was the first incarnation of that band was, I believe, I think it was, Against All was the name of the band. And it was like straight up like New York, Boston hardcore, as far as like the sound and the way we wrote. And then it kind of later in 90s, probably like 97, 90, late 97 was probably when it became more, I guess, metalcore, for lack of a better term.
Got it. And so when you, like sang for the first time, like, got on stage and played a show and stuff like that, was it, I guess, difficult or hard? Like, did you find yourself, because I mean, this is me playing a little armchair psychologist here, but it's like, you seem like a person who, is an intense individual, but not like that sort of person where it's like they walk in the room and they're like sucking the oxygen out of the room, being like, I'm the life of the party, pay attention to me. So, I could be wrong about that, but
no, you're spot on. Yeah, I'm not.
Okay.
Yeah. Less attention, the better. So yeah, it's like to get up and do that, like, was a sort of a, a big ask, but I was like,
Right.
I feel like, just to do it may have been like, just kind of like getting rid of that fear was to actually do it, and
did you feel that fear?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Big time. You kidding me? Like, it was like, holy shit, I have to do this. Like I still feel it now. Like, I'm like thinking about the shows coming up and I'm just like, holy shit, that's going to be so weird. Like, I haven't done anything with this band since 2010.
Right.
And it's
a while. Yeah.
And, to be in a packed room, where people are there to see you and get up there and do it again. It's going to be like, it'll probably be like no time has passed, because it sometimes feels like that. And then other times it feels like it was a million years ago.
Yeah, sure. Well, and I mean, I'm sure it'll be interesting for you to experience that, but like, I think, and I'm sure you've experienced it as well, like when you see, bands play and perform, and they obviously haven't played in, many, many years, I think the bands that have the best time, reacclimating to getting back on the stage are people who have, been generally involved, whether it's playing in other bands or whether it's, just doing something creative. And it's like, clearly you've done that, for, different iterations and different bands over the years. And so I'm sure, to your point, it'll kind of feel like, riding a bicycle or whatever the bad euphemism is.
Yeah. It's like, you get the initial nerves building up to it, like pulling up to the club, loading out, set up, and then it's just like minute by minute, hour by hour. Once the doors open, people are coming down the stairs or into the room, and you're just like, oh shit, here we go. Like, it's
yeah, totally.
Find my space where I can just like, be alone with my thoughts and, not have any like, small conversations, like, and not to be a dick. I just, you just want to be like, okay, like away from it until you have to do it. And
yeah,
so just me, I'm speaking for me, cause, it's just, one of those things where it's like, okay, I'm, you're going to be all in front of all these people doing this shit. So, it's got to be good. They paid to get in there.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure too, like what we were just talking about, the idea of, mentally preparing yourself and like being in the right headspace, like, because it is a, unnatural act for people that are, more introverted. It's like, I got to preserve all the energy, because then like I'm on display for 30, 40 minutes or however long I'm playing. Like, that takes a lot out of you, not only physically, but, mentally as well. So you're like, I got to preserve all that for later.
Yeah, exactly. You just want to have your batteries full for the experience altogether, and that's, part of it is, for me, is just like, finding a place to go and, be alone, and kind of just by myself, whether it's in the van or in the back room in the corner, just hanging out. That's really where it's at for me.
Right. You're like, that's my safe space, my preparation time. Just leave me alone in my thoughts. That's what I got.
Yeah.
And usually I say this in jest, because I also yelled in the bands that I played in. The idea that people that usually, sing/scream for hardcore bands, usually it's because like they either are terrible at other instruments or never pick them up. And so it's like, oh yeah, like you can yell into a, amp or whatever. Was it always the path for you to be kind of the singer?
Well, I mean, I was in like some stupid punk band in high school, and I played bass, like had, zero clue, other than just like, hitting the top string and just like, oh, I think it's this note or that note, and like, I mean, not like we played any shows or anything, but, last person you want on the drums, is me. So I'll put it that way. Yeah. You don't want me picking up the guitar.
Right. So yeah, by default, Kevin will end up on the mic, and thank you for your service.
Yeah. And that's the end. That's it. I can manage that slightly.
Right. Yeah. You're like, I know how to at least be loud. Can you give me that at least? Yeah. And this again, apologies for the armchair psychology in regards to this, but like clearly all of the bands that you have played in, obviously aggressive music, and there's a level of intensity. Like, every time I've watched you play in, every iteration besides bars, I never got to see bars, but, you are an intense performer. Like there's definitely no, no pulling punches in regards to the way that you're getting up there. And I'm sure many people have this conception of you being like, all right, well, I can't talk to Kevin after because dude's going to crush me or whatever. Just that idea of the way you are on stage versus the way you are off stage. Has that been something that you've had to, there's not like there's anything that you can really do to like push back against that besides like, starting a social media profile and, posing with your chihuahuas or something like that. But,
which I do. I have chihuahuas.
So that could be, you could bring them out on stage and be like, hey guys, like, I'm not as mean as you think I am or whatever.
Well, first of all, anyone who knows me knows I'm not like some tough guy. I'm not like, like none of that. Like, I'm not interested in violence. I'm not interested in, fighting in general. I'm just not like those years are way behind me. Like, high school, level bullshit, and the occasional scuffle here and there. But like, I hate violence. I hate anything to do with it. Like, I'm not a violent guy. Angry. Yeah, that's what the music is. If you see it, it's because that's the outlet for that part of me. For the things that I'm, angry about. Lyrically, yeah, that's the spot for it, but that's not me. That's not all of me. That's not who I am. Like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It would just be the most unmanageable, frame of mind, to be angry.
Sure.
Like that'd be, yeah. So that's, it's like, again, not to sound, cliche, but yeah, it's the music is the outlet for that shit that, gets under your skin or really bothers you or scares you or, whatever, whatever negative shit that, you feel you have to, get off your shoulders. I feel like it's really that kind of music is the best way to get rid of it.
I love our friends at evilgreed.net for a multitude of reasons. One being the fact that they are an amazing provider of merch and vinyl and hoodies and everything you could shake a stick at. But the thing is they have a very specific point of view. They have heavy music for heavy people. No, that's a terrible slogan. I apologize. But their point of view is that they work with the bands that are what I like to call sort of artistic heavy stuff. And that is what they do. So like, let me just give you a little sampling of some of the stuff that they have up for either pre-order or is new. So things from, Balance and Composure. They have a new LP coming out not too far down the road, I think in the summertime. They also have the new Loyal to the Grave LP that's up right now on Triple B. That is an incredible record. They also work with amazing labels like Merge Records. They work with Revelation. They work with Triple B, like I mentioned, Days. If you like punk or hardcore metal, you absolutely will love what evilgreed.net has to offer. They ship from Berlin, Germany, but let me let you in on a secret. The shipping rates are very advantageous, or the exchange rates are very advantageous for us right now. So shipping does not cost very much money for you, and you can get it all in one fell swoop. Trust me, you will have so much fun browsing the site and just buying a bunch of things for yourself, because after all, treat yourself for something. I don't know. That's a completely outdated reference to Parks and Recreation, great television show. But anyways, nonetheless, go to evilgreed.net, enjoy what the store has and enjoy their point of view, because I can tell you for a fact, if you listen to this show, you will absolutely love what the store has for you. evilgreed.net. When you started to tour and experience what, like even when you started doing like weekends with Piecemeal and stuff like that, did you immediately take to touring, or did you have to kind of gear yourself up for the fact that, you were going to be around these people for, weeks or months at a time?
I like, especially, I loved getting away. I know we were going back to like where I'm from and how I've been here my whole life, but I did love getting away from here. I did love going and seeing other places, but it really comes down to who you're in the van with. And there's, been some really cool bands, or groups of people, I should say, that I've been in vans with, extensively, and we're having the time of our lives. And I've been in vans with people that, were just absolutely just horrendous to be around, and it would make the whole experience just suck. And so it really all comes down to who's in that van with you. Personalities, man, it's just how it is, how certain people are, and some people just get along, and some people it's like oil and water. And and that'll just be, you won't be able to get away from each other. You're just stuck in that little confined space with each other, and then it just festers. And I mean, that's a classic band scenario right there. People hating each other.
Absolutely. Well, the joke of the hardest part to be in a band is staying together.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the truth. Like, even if you, especially too, where it's like at the age in which you start, playing in bands and touring, it's, maybe late teens, early 20s. And that is such a volatile time for most people. And then you add on top of that, the fact that you have to, act like a business person and be like, oh, we got to get paid $100 for the show. And then on top of that, having to like be creative with others. And then on top of that, touring. And it's just like, it's amazing that bands can even like, put one foot in front of the other and like get from place to place with all that.
Yeah. I mean, especially if you're a successful band. Like I've never been in a band where it was like, this is my career. Like this has never been a career for me. This was just a thing that I liked doing and loved, making the music, recording it, going out and playing it. Money was like, forget about it. It's just
right.
At the end of the day, it's just like, did we break even? Oh, that's awesome. Let's go to Waffle House and eat.
Baseball fans, BetMGM is giving you the chance to win a prize every day during the baseball season. Step into the batter's box for BetMGM's Swing for the Fences free-to-play game. Pick an area of the strike zone and take your best swing. If you get a single, double, triple, or home run, you'll receive a prize. Smash a home run to collect a bonus bet on us. Just log into your BetMGM sports account to get started. Then visit your promotion section to access the Swing for the Fences free-to-play game. You'll score a prize if you hit a single, double, triple, or home run. There's nothing more exciting than going yard, so swing for the fences with the king of sportsbooks. BetMGM and GameSense remind you to play responsibly. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only, Washington, D.C. only. Existing customer offer subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards vary depending on market and expire 24 hours from issuance. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
And but like if you're like, I couldn't imagine being in like a truly successful band and you just like have to work with someone who is just, you absolutely can't stand, that would be, that's a tough situation.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. When, because like moving on to the Hope Conspiracy era, like when you guys hit, especially based on the fact that there was so much attention paid to you guys after the demo, and that was around the time too. Like I so distinctly remember it was like you guys and Killswitch Engage as far as like the last sort of, era of demos where it was like bands. Now I know bands are obviously doing tapes and demos still, and, there was CDR demos, but like I so distinctly remember those demos getting circulated pretty widely. But anyways, the point of me asking this is the idea of you hit pretty quickly. There was a lot of attention paid to you right away. And how did you personally feel like you were kind of handling it? Was it, elements of excitement mixed with elements of like, why are, these people paying attention to, me specifically because I sing for this band? Like, how was that? I know it's probably difficult to put yourself back in that space, but, was it difficult for you, or is it all just exciting?
No, it was all exciting. I was stoked because Piecemeal we couldn't get out of our own fucking way. And, I wasn't like, I didn't think the music was particularly awesome. And that, I go back and listen to it, and it's like so much of it is like, nails on a chalkboard to me. There's things that are cool. Like you said, the Die My Will split was, has some moments on there that I'm like, but that was the last thing we did. So it was like, oh, we were finally maybe starting to gel. But at the same time, like I said, it was like a band that literally couldn't get out of its own way. And, we were like, believe it or not, like at that time we were like talking to at someone at Revelation, and nothing like that was anything concrete. It was just like, just like email or something like that. Like, but when the guys from, Harvest, Adam, who was the drummer, got in touch with me by phone, and, I think Matt had left a message, and I called him back. Like, it's like, hey, we're moving to Boston. We're going to start a new band. We'd love to have you try out. We had they got like a compilation. Someone got their hands on a compilation. I think it was him that Piecemeal was on. And, there was contact info, probably some AOL address or whatever, or matter of fact, it might have even been my phone number, believe it or not. Like when people would put phone numbers and
absolutely,
ridiculous like that. Like for shows, call this number, my number. Yeah. Call my house. And, here it is. Just give it to the world. And so anyway, yeah, when those guys really, it was them that had the attention. Like I was just like, not anyone important, or that people were like, yeah, that guy, like he has I had a following or anything like that. It was just they reached out to me. They're the ones that they were the ones that went on tour all the time and like played, shows all the time to big crowds, in turn, on hardcore, we're talking about
of course,
400 people, a few hundred people, whatever, whoever they were supporting, I know they were definitely big out in Minneapolis, St. Paul, so, when they were making a new band or putting a new band together, the people that were into Harvest, obviously were like, gonna come with them, and like be, and check out whatever it was they were gonna do after. So,
right. Absolutely. Yeah. I see what you're saying in regards to the attention was being paid on them. Like, yeah, I mean, the, ex Harvest, where it's like, oh yeah, the new band of this person, they got to pay attention to that. So I totally get it.
Yeah.
With the, because like you said, Hope Conspiracy was very much a, all or nothing proposition. Like there was definitely no gray area. It wasn't like, oh, we're just going to like take it easy. It's like, we're going to crush it and we're going to put out records and we're going to do the thing. For you, when did you start to feel, I guess the weight of that decision where it was like, oh, and granted, I'm not picking on you for this because that was obviously the mode that most bands acted in. Like there was never any idea that we needed to like, oh, maybe we need to take a break because our band will last longer or whatever.
Yeah. We group stop and maybe
yeah, exactly.
Think about like what we're gonna do next.
Totally. Yeah. There was always just instinct. So like for you personally, like when did you feel that, like I said, the weight of that decision starting to, negatively affect you personally, where it's like, oh man, do I even want to be doing this anymore?
Oh, that was definitely, it was, 2004. Yeah. Early 2004. Like probably, definitely like spring and early summer was when it was like, yeah, stick a fork in it. I needed to just get away from it because we weren't like writing. There was no creating going on. It was just like, jumping on tour, going on tour, playing, shows, going, a lot of going. I do remember going to Europe, a lot around that time. And, but, it was just at that point, End Note had been out for 2 years and with no new music that was worth even mentioning, like even remotely, being ready to record. And so I felt like, what is this? And, and speaking of bars that you brought up earlier, that was kind of a side project that I got involved in because of being frustrated with the lack of production, on the whole Conspiracy's end around that time. And so when we started doing that, that band started playing shows and then doing, getting on I think we did a tour, and on that tour was when I was like, this is like, I'm not doing this. That's why we never made it to California, because on that tour, we got in a big fight in, I think it was like New Mexico or Arizona. It was in Arizona. And we were like, that's it, going home.
Yeah.
Thanks for everything else. And just went home. Like, and that was like around the time where I was like, this is not what I want. This is not, and I'm not saying I hated, music or anything like that, or, it was just as far as like what, it was building to, which was like, being in a band full time and everything else, just your life, falling by the wayside, your relationships back home, just not having money,
Yep.
It wasn't for me. I wanted to, have more stability. And, there was like, at that time, like there was just too much, there was a lot of drinking, and probably to like deal with like, the unhappiness that was, currently in my life at that time, from,
sure.
Maybe from, years earlier, and like just kind of when everything just kind of hits you, and, just like, that's when it hit me on that tour specifically. And, cause even though the whole Conspiracy was maybe not, making music, I loved being with the guys in the band. Like we always loved being around each other. We always had a good time. And so when the bars thing happened, it was like, straight up like ice water, like thrown in your face. Like, oh my God, this is different. Like this is a way different experience than I'm used to. And,
right.
And not in a good way. It was like, it sucked bad.
Yeah.
And,
sure.
And I was just like, no, I'm not doing this.
Yeah. And it woke you up. I appreciate you walking me through that, because I do think it is, it's so interesting and reflective over many people's experiences when they do, create different bands or music projects or whatever, where it's like they all take on such different forms, even though, stylistically, whatever, it's like looking at the differences between Whole Conspiracy and All Pigs Must Die. Like, there's obviously differences, but it's still heavy, aggressive music. But the experience for you is probably night and day. Whereas like most, listeners would be like, oh yeah, like, like it's probably roughly the same experience. It's like, no, drastically different.
Yeah, no, those are two totally different bands. I mean, obviously, like you can make comparisons just because I'm doing the vocals and, lyrically I just do, I write what I write. And so, All Pigs Must Die was just a much heavier, like,
oh yeah,
more crazy, thing, than Whole Conspiracy, like it's, and like the lyrics were way more deadpan, like, less not personal. They were just, like kind of like, sledgehammer,
oh yeah,
point of view,
right. the world is at the bottom of the toilet and we're flushing it. That's what we're doing.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it just, I was like literally just pulling, article, reading an article, just like the news of the day, like, oh, here you go. And then making, you kind of format your own personal lyrics around these things that you're reading about. And it's the horrors of the world. You just like, there it is. It's this this story, this shitty thing happened, over in the Middle East last week. And, and then you just put it to heavy music and it's, it becomes a whole different thing. It's no longer a news article. It's like,
yeah. And on that all pigs must die tip where, I know be similar to what you were talking about, where it's like, there was a very limited experience as far as, you weren't actively touring. Yes, you were playing shows here and there when it made sense, but you weren't, burning the candle at both ends, but you still put out a lot of music around that. And I'm sure you reflect on that much differently than you did with, HopeCon in regards to just how active of a band you were. Do you compare and contrast like those two experiences, or are they just two completely different entities? It's hard to compare the two.
Oh yeah, they're totally different. Like, there was definitely crossover, but like, I felt like we were playing to like different people, them that one would have been into, the Hope Conspiracy, that's for sure. And, playing with bands that, I don't think the Hope Conspiracy would have ever played with. And, so there's that whole thing. And yeah, again, it was like, that, first of all, that band was just like, when it started, it was just Matt, the bass player. We, at the Death Wish record, Death Wish, Christmas party in 2009, he's like, I'm writing new music, let's do a band, let's just make a demo. And, we won't even play a show. We'll just self-finance it. We'll record it. It'll be, and then, press some 7 inches and, it is what it is. And I was like, it sounds fun. Cool. Let me know, when I get back, or I didn't even say when I get back to tour. I was just like, let me know when you have something. And so the last tour that, HopeCon did, which was January of 2010, he's like, I got a surprise for you. It was like the end of January 2010. And he came over and played me the demos. And I was just like, oh, and that, which ended up being the first EP that we put out on our own. We were like, basically we were, in God City in April, recording that thing. And again, we had no plans on playing any shows. We were just like, it was like really just for the fun of making the music and recording it. And then next thing I know, I get a email from, Greg Anderson at Southern Lord, just saying, love the record. If you guys ever want to do anything, just let me know. And, and at that point,
and you're like, what?
Yeah. I was really into, I was really into that label. I still think Southern Lord's a great label, but, in that time, especially, it was just like, putting out things that I had on my regular rotation. So, it was kind of like, shit, that's really cool. And, well, I showed it to the other guys and it's like, what do you think? Should we were planning on just putting up the full length again on our own. And then, so I just said, fuck it, let me give him a call. And we ended up talking for like, 2 hours or something, if I recall. He said, I was like, dude, we've never played a show. I don't know if we'll play a show. Maybe we will. Like, he's like, dude, I put out bands that play no shows. Don't worry about it. And I was like, okay.
Totally.
Yeah. And, very accommodating, very cool. And,
it's incredible, especially too, where it's like, once the notion of the fact that it's like, hey, I just want to work with you because I like your music. Like, I don't want to put any pressure on you from like, oh, you got to play 200 shows a year. It's just like, oh, wait, you can do that? It's like, oh, yeah, like, of course.
Yeah. And, and it was just at that point, like, we were like, because people were starting to ask, us to play shows. And it was definitely, it was almost a year to the day that we, started like actually practicing or rehearsing or whatever, that we played our first show. And I believe, the first show was in Brooklyn. In 2011, I think. Yeah, it was 2011.
Yeah. As you started to, just because, at that time in your life too, I imagine that because, there wasn't so much demand from you being gone. And like you said, that was obviously the, real implication of you wanting to remove yourself from, bars and obviously not tour and stuff like that. Was it difficult for you, and I'm using air quotes here, to like, transition to real life, like not being on the road? Like, I know you've been screen printing for many, many years, but like, was that kind of the vision where you're like, hey, now I can kind of, build life for myself in regards to whatever the future would look like, as opposed to, always quitting jobs because you had to go on tour?
Yeah. Like that's what happened. Like I actually was like, working as a courier, like, driving packages around, which is just this bullshit job to sustain like the band thing, cause it was like, I could come and go as I pleased. I was like, it was nowheresville. It was like, not creative. It was sitting in your car all day. And I'm just like, okay, I got to do this for 2 weeks till we jump on a plane to go to, Germany or something like that. And, and then fast forward like to, when I didn't want to do it anymore and what I was gonna do, the screen printing thing, was just like, I just saw, cause I went to school, for, graphic design. And I actually worked in the job that I was talking about when the band first got together, the whole conspiracy. I was working, for, a place that printed, basically it was, offset printing, established,
Okay.
For the ad agency, ad agencies. And so I did like pre-production there, working nights. And so, going to school for graphic design and printing, I was just like, okay, that's the direction. Cause I actually enjoy, that aspect. It still felt like I had, somewhat association with the music. I wasn't just going to go work like some job that had no connection to it. I was going to still be involved in any way I could. And, screen printing was definitely that thing that I knew I could stay connected to it, through.
Yeah. Right. Like you still feel like that there's an element of creativity to it that, is scratching that itch, but then making you feel like, it's not just some, job where you're just killing time to get paid or whatever.
Yeah. And also I'm not like, ripping shingles off a roof or,
yeah, totally
paving or that kind of stuff. Not,
you're like, I'm not cut out for that,
but I don't want to do it. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've done it.
Right. Yeah. You're like, I don't want to do it because I've done it before and I know I'm not made of that material. Yeah.
I know for a form that I don't want to do that.
Sure. Last two things I want to hit on was the idea that, you obviously putting out new music, playing shows, all of that stuff, like after, so many years, it's, kind of a cliched question, but like, I'm not going to ask you to walk me through like why you guys decided to do it. Like, you'll answer that 9 million times to Sunday, but, you personally, like what made you feel, I guess, compelled to do it? Was it just the idea of the fact that you could create with friends again and it was as simple as that? Or was there something, something other than that motivating you?
Well, going back to the All Pigs Must Die thing, like the whole time that band was active, which is like basically from 2010 to, our last show we played, not like it was our quote unquote last show. It was just the last show we played, was September of 2018. And, in those years, the other guys obviously had their other things they were doing, whether it was, side projects because they had, real jobs, or, like in Jared's case, who's actually a musician, like he's a drummer that, that's how he makes his living. And,
Yep.
They were still getting together, and trying to, write and, demo. And there were, it would be like twice a year. I would be like, hey, they're out in the West Coast, by the way. So, I would just be, getting text messages or whatever, telling me what they were up to. And I'll be honest with you. I'm not like that. It's not like I haven't said it to them. I was just like, okay, all right.
Totally.
I kind of did not have, like, in my head, like, it was just like, no, I don't have the heart to tell them, but I am not doing that. Like that, not only do I not have the time, I just can't even imagine what that would be. And if I would want to or do it, and
sure.
But as years went by and, APMD basically just, kind of just came to a stop, dead stop. And, of course, COVID happened, and that's 2 years, whatever, down the drain. Those guys were still getting together. And the idea, and mind you, that whole time, that band was like always getting offers to play a fest or to do this or do that or reunion show. And I was just like, we've always been just like, no, like if we are going to do it, we're writing new music. And if it's not good, we're not putting it out and we're not playing.
Right.
It's got to be good, at least to us, and yeah, whatever anybody else thinks is whatever. And that is going to be the driver, like, new music. And then from there, we'll see what happens, cause again, it was like the APMD thing. We were like, okay, we'll record this record, but don't even talk to me about shows. I know, like, at one point,
right.
There was definitely like, someone in the band who was like, don't even mention that. Like, I don't even know, like, how to even wrap my head around that. It's just not something I'm even into thinking about. And so here we are now. We, wrote the songs and, recorded them. And I think they came out great. It's my favorite thing we've ever done. And, we booked shows.
Yeah. You're like, here we go.
Yeah.
What we're doing.
Yeah.
And I realize this may be kind of, a larger question to end things off with, but what, for you, the, creative drive and playing music and contributing in that way, you're a grown ass adult, like you don't necessarily need to do this anymore. You've already contributed a lot, but, what do you, I guess, get out of this? Is it just the simple act of creation, or is there, obviously, I know there's not just one reason, but, why do you keep, I guess, getting up on that saddle?
Well, I guess going back to the previous thing we were just talking about, it was all about making new music, but I had a change of heart. It was probably like 2 years ago. And it, just getting older and, time's just slipping away. And so it was just like, it kind of occurred to us collectively, like, listen, if this is actually going to happen, we got to do it now, because we're not getting any younger, and, so that was really, it was really just the idea of being around the rest of the guys and, kind of reliving, those years that we had where, it was like, it was pretty much the best years of my life when we were, in the early 2000s going on tour, in Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, the US. And so, you kind of, as the time goes by, you're just like, damn, I want to be with my brothers. I want to write some more music, or at least go on a vacation together. But like, we just, years go by, we don't see each other in person, and we felt like that this would be the thing that kind of brings us all back to, like, kind of forces us back together, at this point in our lives. And so, yeah, that's kind of
the reason, baby.
Yeah, that was the reason. That was like, a lot of it, big one.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's just because it comes from a place of yes, there is an element of nostalgia, but it's nostalgia for the relationships that you have and still have, as opposed to like, all right, let's do another lap to, play these songs to be a jukebox for, whoever is coming to see us. It's like that. And that's obviously dovetails into, putting out new music and stuff like that. It all comes from a good place as opposed to, all right, here's us just trying to capture, reclaim glory or whatever.
Right. And I do know, like, there's going to be people that just want us to play the first record, like, I get that. Like, it's when I go see the bands that I love and they don't play, the stuff that I listen to the most from them, it's disappointing. I get it. But like, as far as my perspective goes, it's just, this band wasn't just going to be, like you said, just like, jumping on a fest middle of the day, to play, the demo and the first record,
Right.
I have literally 0.0 interest in that at all. Like, cause, I'm not like shitting on that music, it is what it is. People love it and that's cool. They can listen to it anytime. It's there. It's preserved. There's, and I'm not saying we're not going to play any of those songs. We'll pull some stuff out from that time. But, for me, it's like, the newer stuff was the focus. And, so a lot of it'll be like Death Knows Your Name. And, really that'll be like the bulk of the sets we're going to be playing. And then obviously, a handful of the new songs, and then, we'll pull some surprises out.
Boom. Kevin Baker coming through in the clutch. What a good hang. I really enjoyed him as a human. I like the fact that I could bring up his chihuahuas. Shout out to his publicist, Stephanie, who, just a great friend of the show, past guest of the show, always brings me fun ideas, and I just love her greatly. So yeah, thanks for those things. It's always nice to be able to help out friends and do this whole, sort of circuitous, I help you, you help me, everybody wins. That's what we do here. Anyways, next week on the podcast is Brett Campbell, the vocalist from a band that I have loved ever since their first EP called Pallbearer. They just released a new record that is unfathomably good. But Brett Campbell, vocalist, guitarist, love this band so much. Had a member of Pallbearer on many moons ago. I can't even remember how many years ago that was, but I love Pallbearer, so I was like, I got to have Brett on the show, and that's what we did. So that's what's happening next week. Until then, please be safe, everybody. The show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Trust me in saying that no matter who you are, mental health challenges can affect you, and how you manage them can make all of the difference. That's why everyone should have access to mental health support that meets them where they are and helps them get through. BetterHelp provides online therapy on your schedule. It's flexible, simple to use, and more affordable than in-person therapy. Connect with a licensed therapist selected just for you. Learn more at betterhelp.com. That's betterhelp.com.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather, now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Toyota is the best resale value brand for 2024, according to Kelley Blue Book's KBB.com. So choose a Toyota and get the confidence that your vehicle will retain its value year after year. And check out the all-new 25 Camry, or test drive a stylish and affordable Corolla. Find out more at buyatoyota.com. Vehicles projected resale value is specific to the 2024 model year. For more information, visit Kelley Blue Book's KBB.com. Kelley Blue Book is a registered trademark of Kelley Blue Book Co., Inc. Toyota. Let's go places.